Looks like we're live.
Yes, it looks that way. Let me. All right. All right. I guess we're good to go.
All right, let's call this meeting to order of the Commissioners of Poolesville. It's August 3rd, 7:09. And I'll go ahead and lead us in our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. All right, let's call this meeting to order of the Commissioners of Poolesville. And justice for all. Just heard myself again. Deja vu. First, we have our commissioner reports. I'll just try to go quickly through. I have a couple things. So tomorrow night is Montgomery County Mayor's meeting via Zoom, and they're discussing policing procedures is the topic for tomorrow. In September, I'm actually going to be leading a topic on racial inequity and social justice, which will be kind of like a roundtable of what all of our various towns and cities are doing. There's Jerry. Hi, Jerry.
Hello there.
We just started.
All right.
Lorianne Sales, councilwoman for Gaithersburg, also enlisted me to join a committee that she's formed called Women's Equality Day 2020 Committee. And so I and Delegate Lily Chi have written a draft of an op-ed for the Post that on the subject of the Centennial, the 19th Amendment, which of course is women's suffrage. There were to be a number of events and activities planned for the entire month of August, but of course, like everything in our world, they were all canceled. I did want to give a shout out to Alex Markov, who was planning to donate the barn at Kaleva for a big get out the vote event that was especially going to be targeting young voters. So unfortunately that can't happen now, but there will be a series of online activities happening the last week of August, and that's countywide and then also statewide. And then, as I'm sure you all know by now, the state's mandated that all public schools are virtual, at least for the fall, possibly for the spring. And then on Friday night, the chief health officer in Montgomery County issued a statement mandating that private schools also be virtual only, at least for the first quarter. And then Hogan put out a statement saying, quote, "I strongly disagree with Montgomery County's decision to mandate the closure of private and parochial schools. This is a decision for schools and parents, not politicians." And then today, Hogan announced that he's reversing the county's decision by way of a revised emergency order, though it's only in reference to private schools, not public. So this seems like just changing by the minute. And then Parks Board, we meet Wednesday night via Zoom. That's August 5th at 7. I haven't seen our agenda yet, but I did just want to add that the Parks Board is actually called the Parks, Recreation, and Roads Board. And I'd had a conversation with our chair, Doug McKinney, as well as with Seth, our town manager, about splitting our agendas to include items specific to roads only. And Seth very cleverly challenged me to define exactly what those agenda items would be. And after having a bit of a discussion, it really kind of became clear that very little of the time spent on that committee is actually devoted to roads. And I mean, most all of our agenda items are really pertinent to Parks and Rec. And so and I think the main reason for that is that generally staff, our town manager and our town engineer, is most directly, the authority on those items, per direction from this body, from the Board of Commissioners. So it just started to beg the question that maybe the Parks Board actually is more aptly named the Parks and Rec Board, which, honestly is probably how most municipalities do it. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out. I know one of our agenda items tonight is kind of looking at our boards and committees anyway. So I just thought I would sort of throw that out as something to think about. And that's all I have. Jim, did you want to go next?
Are we doing committee reports or are they just individual?
Yeah, both.
Okay. Nothing really individual, just got back from vacation. And we did have a fair access Zoom meeting last week. We basically just talked about our budget and how we were looking at FY21, what the committee was going to need, some of the direction items that we had, what were they going to cost. As you guys know, everything that's going on with COVID, it's all pretty much on hold. Our direction too. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and we're hoping that it's going to drop in our favor again as the CIP challenges continue to mount at the county and state level. So we're still cautiously optimistic. We've talked to the people that are the deciders, and we're still supposedly very solid in the budget right now. Hopefully that we're gonna keep that position. We did have the Plenty magazine came out in our paid positioning, as well as our article that they wrote came out. It was a good article. I thought it was Steve Goldstein's the writer. It's in I'm not sure if that link got distributed or not, but it's a good read. I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of the link. It was probably, in my book, the minimum amount that we could expect for them to do, but they still did it. And it was a good article, and it kind of just put the word out, talked about fair access, the creation of it, and then our direction as we go forward here. I know, Jerry, you were at the meeting, right?
Right.
Do you want to fill in some of the blanks? Because I was under bad service and just listening.
Yeah, well, basically the magazine and everything, and there was a question as to whether or not the council members and the Board of Ed would have received it. And I said I would go get the copies of the magazine for distribution to the board, hard copies to the board and to the council members. So I do have those copies, and then I'm just going to need some envelopes and some sticky labels to address them, and put a little note in there saying with compliments from the Fair Access Committee to send out to all those, all the board members, the Board of Education members, the county council members, the county executive, Seth Adams, Dr. Smith, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically it. And basically that's all I recall, to tell you the truth. I didn't take notes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and just to keep that, thanks, Jerry, I appreciate that. We also had, as I said, we're the whole direction of the advocacy is not in question. We know what we need to do to maintain our positioning and keep ourselves tuned up with the deciders. Those are the council members, Dr. Smith, of course, the county executive. That's just going to continue to evolve as the challenges of COVID, and they've got their hands full, obviously. As you referred to, Carrie, there's some division amongst the ranks between the governor and Montgomery County. Just a lot going on. So it's not that we're out of place trying to keep our advocacy up, but they've just got their hands full. So that's it for now for the Fair Access Committee. I should make the rest of the meetings after this one, and I'll keep everybody in the loop, and I will send a link for that Plenty magazine so you can see it digitally.
Great. Thanks. Jerry?
Yep. Thank you. Yes, let me start out saying that the Poolsville census response rate is up to 83.1.
Great.
We've gone up since last time, and the census tract, which is the area around us, is at 76.2, and both those are better than our continue to improve upon in the 2010 census response rates. Again, the Montgomery County Department of Health will conduct COVID-19 testing from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, 15 August at the Poolsville Baptist Church at 17550 West Willard Road. And on the 7th of August, details on how to sign up for the test will be posted on the town's webpage, Facebook page, and the Town of Poolsville Community Information Facebook page, so people can go ahead and sign up for that.
Great.
And there's one little thing I'd like to mention. One of the commissioners at our last meeting said there were some comments which implied the Poolsville Senior Center, or Poolsville Seniors, which is the new moniker for the Poolsville Senior Center, is in some sort of disarray, and that's far from the truth. Currently, the board is doing a self-examination of where the senior center is programmatically and where it should go to meet current and future needs of our area's seniors. What has complicated their situation is the need to comply with new IRS requirements, which resulted in the current staff's decision to end their employment with the center. As an independent entity, the Poolsville Senior Board is doing a fine job and has proven itself to be quite capable of running a successful center without us sticking our noses in it. And that's about it. As you know, the school is going to be, except for, well, depends on what's going to happen between the governor and the county with respect to private schools, but virtual schooling is going to be in effect from 31 August until January. And that is all going to depend on the trajectory of the virus and whether we have a vaccine, and the vaccine, if there's a vaccination plan, which I've asked the state if are they formulating one so that they can get the vaccine out as quickly as possible to all the people who need it, and the most important people that need it as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I heard you talking about census. I just wanted to mention that someone on this call disclosed to me that he had not yet completed his census. And so just wanted to mention it. Just wanted to mention it.
Is he a Maryland resident? Is he a Maryland resident?
I won't say anymore.
Okay. All right. I mean, hey, we've gone up quite a bit from what we were last year. Hey, honesty, transparency. Thank you, Martin.
All right.
If you can't figure out how to operate your computer, probably Maisie can do it for you. So all you have to do is tell her how to do it.
No, I was literally
having a problem with your little
my census
little
is
IT
complete.
angst.
My census is complete.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Martin.
As you know, I just got back from vacation, and the Planning Commission meeting is upcoming, so I will have more information for you at our next meeting.
All right, very good.
My census is complete as 12 hours ago.
All right, love it.
12 hours ago.
You don't mean like 7 seconds ago? Very good, very good. And next we have approval of minutes. So these are the minutes from our last commissioner meeting, July 20th, 2020.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the Commissioners of Poolsville, July 20th, 2020 meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
We have one abstention. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone?
We do not have anyone.
Oh, okay. All right. So next we have old business, request for historical naming of street park. Amend resolution 002-07, policy of naming streets. So this was one part of something that we did approve last meeting, correct?
That's correct. So you had two parts. You've approved the names that you intend to use for the naming of streets and parks and fields. However, we needed to amend the resolution, and I wanted to make sure that you were okay amending the old resolution before I went through the whole process, amending it and making it flow, because it wasn't just as simple as adding the word parks and fields behind the word streets in every location. So I've provided to you a new resolution 3-20 for your approval, which basically formalizes what you approved conceptually in terms of this change. The only one change that I've added here, and I think we should include, is a whereas, which says, whereas this amends resolution 002-07. So we actually have a reference point from this one back to the other one. Other than that, what you have before is what we need to approve.
Any questions or discussion on that? I don't have any. Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt this resolution?
It's adopting the amended resolution, right?
The amended resolution number 3-20.
Is that it?
Yeah,
I'll make the motion. I make a motion that the town commissioners amend resolution number 3-20 as supplied by the town manager in our minutes, in our commissioner package.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So next on our old business is the subject of Diversity Council. And this was an idea that I brought up last meeting. There are a number of community members who have said to me anecdotally that they would like to serve on such a committee. So I do believe we have interest, and basically the goals that have been talked about are threefold. One, education in the form of events and awareness. Two, resources. What's our history? What are ways to get involved? How to take action? And then the third one is policy. And this would really be the area where this kind of committee would engage most with us, with our board, would in making recommendations for specific policies or legislation that could actually be enacted on a municipal level. And I'd be happy to be a liaison to the committee, so it doesn't have to be me. If someone else would like to step up, or having a second liaison would be good too, perhaps to share in the commitment.
Are we making a move to officially create this diversity council? Is that what's happening?
That's what I would be in favor of, if the rest of this body would like to do that.
I thought that we were going to leave it to see how the that Facebook, the group that was created on Zoom through Pastor Copeland and others, we were going to see how that took off. I mean, I'm not in favor or not in favor of this. I'm just trying to kind of pick up where we left off on the last go round. And is that something? Do we? I guess we want to go. We're not sidestepping it, but we're talking about creating something that's would run in parallel.
Yes, this would be something that would run in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
I think we ought to let Ed Reed and Reverend Copeland continue to develop their committee. They meet every, I think it's 8 o'clock on Thursdays and 8:30 on Saturday mornings. You know, and they're working through it, and mission statement and the whole bit. And I think, you know, why don't we just let them flush it out and see what they come up with first before, you know, we just jump in. And also, Jim, last time we created a committee like the Sustainable Poolsville Committee. Do we have to do that by resolution?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I'm thinking that if we're gonna create this, and which, Carrie, I'm in favor of the idea of it, and I would like to see us have some leadership on it, you know, too. but I don't want to spin our wheels or create something that is not, that doesn't serve the community potentially as well as what Ed and Chuck are working on. And again, we're all handicapped by this having to be a virtual process, all the time. We really can't meet face to face and see each other. And I'd love to see the dialogue that would come out of that. In some of the in-person meetings would probably be, super exciting and interesting and, heartfelt, meaningful, etc. So I don't necessarily want to say that creating a diversity council, I think it's a good idea. I want to make sure we do it right. But I'm not saying you're not saying that either. I love the initiative. So Carrie, if we were going to put something together that was, this is a perfect spot for old business. Would you want to create a committee that would like have certain members from, what would the body of the committee look like? Would it be commissioners plus, 2 non-elected officials plus? I mean, we kind of got to figure out how this thing would look to make sure that it can be functional. And I do think we could do something informally, but I think Jerry's right that if we're going to really put something together that maybe has the teeth that we're looking for, then we've got to do it by resolution and figure out the makeup of the board. And I'm open to all ideas on that.
Now, if I just could add on to what Jim said, I think he had a good point about what the community is, what they develop, I think is the important thing. I think, what they would come up with, I would hate to see us do something that would, not be exactly in line with what they propose. So I would give them some time to come up with something and let them come to us and then work with them to go through and create this diversity committee.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. They're not going to come up with something different. I mean, they're going to be on. Carrie, am I correct? They'd be on this committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'd be on it, but they want to create a mission statement. They're looking to create come up with a name that is inclusive, that includes, all of Western Montgomery County, et cetera, et cetera. So, defines the group. So I think, we just ought to let them go ahead and do it.
Can I make a suggestion? What about the notion of having them attend one of our meetings? Maybe it's a special meeting, maybe it's a regular meeting, and we sort of like hear their vision and hear why it would help to have our government, associated with it, and sort of go from there.
I mean, I like the idea of, and I know this, Carrie, I know this is where you're headed with this too. How can we best channel the power of the municipality behind the direction of the group? And I know that's what you're after, because that, there's going to be some effectiveness that can grow out of that. So
It gives it more legitimacy, becomes more of a driver.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, our residents know we're addressing something that's clearly a problem. I mean, like you see some of the stuff on the Facebook page, and clearly it would help to have some kind of a dialogue, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to make sure we do it right and do it the way that the guys have kind of jump started it, which is awesome. And the community definitely has gotten behind it, just by attendance alone, but also by the constructiveness of the dialogue. So I just want to make sure that whatever we create, that we do it right. And we probably should do it by resolution, and we should probably have a little more advice about the best way to structure it so that we can have so that as you said, it can really have the impact that we want it to have.
I agree with
that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I think we need to be really careful, and I think we need to have a lot of input from people of color. I mean, who wants a diversity committee established by 5 white people?
Yeah, agreed. Yep, we need more.
Need input.
Yeah. So, Carrie, are you okay with letting it hang on old business then, and then we keep it, push it forward on the agenda?
That's fine with me. I guess we just should be specific about what we're directing staff to do, or what we're asking committee members to do next time.
Well,
I'd like to see. I think it's a good idea to get Chuck or Ed to come on the next go round and see how they'd like to see it structured for max effectiveness. And then we could always task our town manager to and Jay to come up with a structure that makes sense. That's like the right fit for what the goals are.
Yeah, I agree with what Jim said. It'd be great to have them come on and like sort of have them have an outline of like what they're envisioning this to be. And then that can sort of get the ball rolling.
All right, that sounds good to me. All right, moving on. New business, COVID update.
I don't have anything in particular. COVID. I don't know if you have anything or anybody else does.
No,
Now just keep that good news coming. I do. By the way, I had my twin brother and another guest in from California for the last week and a half, and they were, they really don't talk the same language as even we do in Maryland when we start talking about, positive cases per test, and a lot of the ways that probably some of the states on the eastern part of the country talk about it, which is just another kind of indicator of the disjointed response in general when, of course, two sides of the country are almost not even talking about the same thing. So we had a lot of that going on this week. And I said, man, I only know what we know here in Maryland. And I'm actually pretty proud of how Marylanders have responded so far and the direction of the governor and the state legislature. And hopefully we kind of keep our results going in the right direction.
Yeah, maybe we should make a rule that we come up with something positive related to COVID each time.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Might be hard to find, but
we need it. Yep. All right. Thanks for nothing, Seth. What else you got?
Well, I'm waiting for us to go to number 2.
All right. Number 2, Women's Suffrage Centennial Proclamation. Thanks to, I think Kathy put this together for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, she found some stuff. I added it up and she finalized the draft.
So this was one of the parts of the initiative that I spoke about earlier. Of course, this year is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And so thanks to staff for putting together this proclamation. Do I need to read it in full?
No.
Yeah.
Everyone can see it. It's the 19th Amendment Centennial Commemoration on this day, August 3rd, 2020. And I'll read the bottom part. How about that? Therefore, be it resolved that we, the Poolesville Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the calendar year 2020 to be 19th Amendment Centennial Commemoration in Poolesville and encourage all people to learn about and commemorate the efforts of the women's suffrage movement and the role of women in our democracy. Signed this 3rd day of August 2020 in Poolesville, Maryland.
very good.
Very nicely done. Thank you.
Yeah, my only comment, and I wouldn't want to remove any single clause in this proclamation, but it would have been nice to have it stay one page. The rollover is a little bit, but there's nothing else we could take out besides expanding margins or doing something like that. But you could never, all of the pieces, all of the components need to be in there, no question. So.
Yeah, I did play with that, and then the header and footer kind of got weird, and I was like, 2-page.
We've never had success with that template. We should probably get a real artist put this like a movable template together so we can do this. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I've written a few of these, and they came up every time they would turn the logo or the footer, make it screwy. So
Yeah.
Okay, you tried, man. I'm just saying my piece.
Yeah, I knew Jim Brown would be like, this is a 1-pager. Yeah. As much as I tried, it said
right.
No.
Without
the COVID bad news.
Right, without removing not even a word, which I would not want to do. So thank you for trying. Thank you for reading my mind. Good job.
You're welcome.
Yeah, nice job. It's really nicely written. Appreciate it. Would
So,
anyone like to make a motion to adopt this resolution?
I make a
sorry,
motion to adopt
proclamation.
the resolution,
you make a motion that we
adopt the
adopt,
proclamation of
Thank
the
you.
19th Amendment Centennial Commemoration on August 3rd, 2020.
I second that.
right?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Motion passes.
You know, you could always put the symbol of the town hall, you could put that in the background and then print over it.
Ooh, like a watermark.
Yeah,
Very nice.
that's what I do when
We'll
I'm
get it
looking
figured
up for the proclamations for the certificates for the Boy Scouts and such.
We're all gonna play with it, Seth. You'll have like 5 different.
That's not what I want.
No, I'm not gonna play with it. He's gonna play with it. I'm just making a suggestion.
So that it all fits on there.
Yeah,
Be like this big.
right.
All right. Third under new business is boards and commissions nomination process and streamlining terms. I'll let you go ahead.
Certainly, as noted, there's basically 2 components to this. The first part is the nomination process. The way we currently handle the nomination process today is if you're the incumbent, so to speak, and you request to be reappointed to the next term, your term has expired and you'd like to reapply, we do not advertise for that position. So the incumbent essentially has right of ascension back into their position. Some communities take an approach where anytime a term expires and there's an opportunity to publicize for that term, it is publicized. The incumbent plus any new residents who would like to try and apply for that position could apply. And then the town commission would take, if the incumbent has applied, plus any new members, and look at their experience, their interests, their level, the town commission would like to go, and evaluate all those and see who the best person is for that position. So it really basically models a typical election. You come to the end of your term and you have to run for your position again. And then anybody who's interested in running in that position can as well. So that's one of 2 parts of that. Buried within that, there's been a question about to me or posed to me whether it should be term limits or not. I will leave that up to you all to make that decision as well. And then the second part is streamlining. There is some amount of this in the ordinances that has been done, but it'd be nice if possible to make the terms about the same length if possible. Sometimes terms are dictated by state code, but then it'd be nice to place all these in a very similar section of the town code, town charter, because currently some boards are described in the charter and some are described in the code. So if we could sort of unify all that process and make them as similar as possible, including the similar general makeup and other characteristics of them, that'd be helpful overall. So what the commission might want to consider, and this is under town commissions, if you'd like to do either the nominating process differently or the streamlining process, both together, and if you are interested in one or both pieces, Jay and I can start working on this, and we'll come back to you at some point in the future. It's not going to be very immediate, but it will be in the future with some recommendation on the nomination process, and also on the streamlining if that's what you desire.
If I may,
Yeah, please do.
yeah, I would recommend that we stagger terms, just like we stagger commissioner, elections, we stagger their terms as well. So that we, the whole board doesn't go out in one shot.
They're already staggered.
Okay, so that would be in the, what you call it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, we could clarify that. Yep.
And piggybacking what Jerry says, one thing, and I would guess this is, would it make sense to stagger the expiration date on the boards? So that we're, maybe it makes sense that they all get tackled at the same time, April 1, but maybe it doesn't make sense to do it that way. Because, we're not a town of unlimited people here. And it's nice to having our boards fully staffed. We really haven't had an issue with that too much in recent times, but as Jerry will recall, there was a time when we had trouble getting people to fill spots on a regular basis. And I'm wondering, I just, something we probably need to keep in the back of our mind, that maybe it's not wise to have the board expirations all take place on April 1. Or maybe it is, so then it's on everybody's mind that we know April 1 is coming up. What do other towns do, Seth?
I think it flexes. Sometimes it lands on a calendar year. Sometimes it's sort of random, like April 1st.
Right.
Which I think is kind of ironic what April 1st is.
Right.
It could align with your fiscal year if you desire as well, a June 1 or a July 1, excuse me. So it could flex. I think more importantly is that the years are staggered than the month at which the people are reappointed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely more important. And I also don't like a January 1 term start either. That just seems like
most people holiday season and aren't focused on this. And
right.
I don't know, maybe there's something to spring.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of streamlining it. I also like the idea of getting these, on the town commissioner action, you had it, number 1, we can keep talking about those, but then, and then I think where our direction needs to be to follow through with number 2 on the town commissioner action under streamlining.
So I'm hearing the streamlining is a go. What about the nomination process? Are we okay with that, or would you discuss that more as a body?
Yeah, I really like the idea of all of this, of taking a look at everything. I mean, having historical knowledge on our boards is really important. But I think just as important is having fresh eyes and diversity of thought. So I like the idea of a new process for nominations, even perhaps for board members to serve for a certain number of terms, maybe 2. I don't know what the length of those terms would need to be if we're trying to streamline and trying to get them to all be the same. But maybe they have 2 terms and then you go off the board for a certain amount of time and then you can be renominated if you so desire. I guess I like that idea. I like the idea of streamlining in general. You may go through the process of researching it and find that some of the discrepancies that you find in the policies from committee to committee actually do make good sense. The reasons for that may make sense, and you may find that some others maybe made sense a while back and now don't really so much. So I think it's a good thing to look at in general.
Seth, a question for you: how do we prevent the short-term whims or direction of the elected commissioners from basically when we have these boards and commissions expire, certain staggered terms? How do we stop, or how would we? One thing I liked about our boards in general are the level of continuity, and I remember as serving on a bunch of these that the board really got functional when there was continuity and there wasn't. I'm not going to call it like knee-jerk reaction, but where it's tough to tell our board members, especially some of the obviously a board like the Planning Commission that has some autonomy. It doesn't make sense to me to, I guess if it's the whim of the commissioners, but to be able to say when someone's term expires that we've got, they have to be interested obviously in reapplying. Which is a shame in some degree, but I don't really know how to change that direction, because the knowledge and the abilities that these boards gather and gain with experience, there's something to be said about that in terms of continuity and a steady as she goes direction for the town. So I'd have a little bit of concerns about that, and I don't know if there's a better way to do things. But I do worry a little bit about, the commissioners are up for election every 2 years. There's going to be commissioner changes likely every election from now on till whenever. I think the steadiness of some of our other boards has been basically a godsend in the direction, the experiences they gain and the thought process they have. We meet twice a month, they meet once a month. It feels like you barely get any continuity going until they, build some trust and become like a really functional as a board. Is there any way that any of that thought process towards continuity is going to be affected by some of the proposals in the nomination process?
No, I would have to agree with Jim on this because, if you have a board who starts doing, say, the comprehensive master plan,
Right. Yep.
and all of a sudden you're going to change everybody. I mean, it's like you need the continuity on some of these that are long range and aren't simply done in a month or two. You need people there who started with it to finish it, and I think that's an important part. So, and like Jim says, I think board members, and then when they initially get on the board, they're feeling each other out, they're talking with each other, they're understanding how each of them think and what each's expertise is. So I think that helps out as well. So I have to agree with Jim.
I'm asking for a solution. Like, I want to make sure that continuity works. Remember, just remember again, we meet twice a month. Plus we also, during normal times, we get together at various events, et cetera, everything from fair access to all commissioners attending things, et cetera. These boards meet once a month and it feels like they barely get their legs underneath them. And then if they change members, I love when everything's working right, the yin and the yang between the elected commissioners and the almost steady as she goes boards has been I think very beneficial to the town. I don't necessarily want to change that dynamic.
Say for instance, we had, two 4-year terms, that's still, even with them being staggered, that's still 8 years, or maybe with staggering at 6 years, that a board is all together. I mean, still, kind of harnessing that historical knowledge.
To confirm, what happens now? Like if someone's on the whatever board and their term expires, are they automatically back in? I can't recall how we did it on the planning commission.
Basically, as long as somebody says, I'm interested, we do not advertise for that position.
I think what Sarah's getting at, and there might not be an easy solution here, but what she's getting at is the hypothetical situation, and I think it's hypothetical at this point, but say you get like a board member on there that just likes to have this on their resume and they're just kind of skating. Like they aren't really reviewing their materials, they're not participating, they're just kind of like, checked out. Maybe their heart's not in it. And this is probably what you're addressing with the term limits as well. Like, what do you do about that? What do you do? I mean, I remember when there was a gentleman on one of our boards, Jim and Jerry, you were here for this, and he was kind of problematic in the town and like on social media and stuff, and we all agreed that maybe we shouldn't like invite him to participate again.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That is what we did.
Let me help you focus. Maybe I can get through some of this. As far as the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, their stuff is controlled by state law. So you don't really get a say over the terms. And if you look at how they work, the Planning Commission term is a 5-year term. So any Board of Commissioners will only ever get to vote on the appointment of that once during their elected cycle, if that makes sense. So you get elected, you serve 4 years, you got to make one appointment, so that the continuity is supposed to outlast the elected official. And if you want to appoint him again, that's why you have to appoint. What Seth is saying is that you just don't advertise. If somebody says, I'm still interested, you still reappoint them. You still have the option of not reappointing them, but you don't go through an open seat process.
Right.
Board of Zoning Appeals.
Are we banned from doing that?
You could. I mean, most places look at these as appointments, meaning that we're going to make an appointment and we want to take the best individuals in the community. And as Seth said, we're going to compare them all together. And a lot of times the incumbent's going to be the case because you really only saying it's easier to appoint vacancies than incumbents. But in the case of what Martin said, when you have a problematic person, when their appointment ends, you can be saying, well, we're not going to reappoint you because it's not expected, it's not automatic, it's not required. Board of Zoning Appeals has a mandatory 3-year term. So theirs is less, but then again, you may, depending on when you get elected, get to vote on a BZA member twice in your 4-year term, or you may not. But then again, they get appointed by you all as well. So those are the ones that have to have a lot of continuity because it makes it difficult for us when you have master planning issues for the Planning Commission or lack of experience at the BZA, yet they're expected to be a quasi-hearing board and things like that. The other boards, you have a free reign to do anything you want with because you created them.
Right.
Just to piggyback in
Go
here
ahead.
a little bit, is clearly you're all struggling with an issue that's been hot in the political circles almost now for 30 years and hasn't been solved, so don't feel bad about it, and that's term limits, right? It really is a struggle. I mean, you've all hit on the most important topics on both sides of this issue, and there's pros and cons. That'd have been easy, we'd probably figured this out a little bit. And so there's if anything, even for a moment, putting term limits on the side, you all as commissioners really essentially become the dictators of term limits or not through the nomination process. If you like somebody who's doing a great job and they've stayed the course and they've been good, you know, inherently you can reappoint them. If you have somebody that, you know, thought they were getting on a board that was a little bit more interesting than it was, and as to Martin's point, it is it's just become a resume builder, then you have an opportunity to change them out. But you know, you don't know, and I think that's part of Carrie's point is, you know, what happens if a commission just gets in a rut as well. But I do think you have a lot of guiding hand when you go through the appointment process, because that way it's not a rubber stamped, you're guaranteed. There's some expectation that, you know,
It's
you
that
do, you know,
understanding.
most of our members are doing a good job. So I don't think it's really what we're concerned about is our current members, just making sure, as somebody said, you know, that, you know, we have very capable people on our boards, and I think we probably do now, but it doesn't hurt to see, you know, who's interested in
I
applying.
assume there's a mechanism that if somebody goes off the rails, we can convene an emergency meeting and dismiss that person. And there's probably some, but that's something that's pretty extreme, and we don't want to probably, you know, we're a small town, we don't want to make that a practice. Seth, am I understanding you correctly? Are you saying that with all these boards, like the reappointment comes up and like we're not obligated to reappoint them? Is that correct?
You're never obligated to reappoint. That's correct. But you don't have a process in place. And this is what I keep hounding on things. Is like, you don't have a process. If your history has been, we basically reappoint the incumbents, and then there's one or two that you don't want to reappoint, you're going to have to explain to that person, why am I being singled out in this process? And the other cohort of 8 is going forward. I think you'd rather want to say, let's just kind of open this up and see who's interested. Now you can handle it that way. You can handle it any way you want. But if you have a process built in place, this is what we do every single time, then it's a little cleaner.
I like the notion of bringing it to a meeting and saying, you know, person X wants to be reappointed to the BZA. All in favor, aye or nay. I mean, I think that, like, to your concern, Jim, we're not, like, I think most of us would probably vote to reappoint almost everyone on all these boards now. We all appreciate what they do. We all appreciate they're doing a good job. They all seem pretty engaged. So I think it's, I don't think it would be some kind of a whimsical thing where there'd be a lot of turnover. I think that, you know, for the most part, we all agree that they're all pretty good, and it would kind of just be like Seth saying, like streamlining it, making it an official policy, and probably just be, you know, similar to what's been happening anyway.
Yeah, I know. I really appreciate the time and the effort that all of our boards and committee members put into their volunteer jobs for our town. But what I was really struck by, what made me start really thinking about this topic, was when we went through the process of nominating someone for the Planning Commission last year, and we had 8 people apply for that position, and they were all great. I mean, they were all great applicants. And I was just struck by the fact that here are people wanting to get involved. And so I guess I'm wanting to find a way to do both, to keep our historical knowledge, to acknowledge the fact that that we have good people, who are doing good things for the town because they've been around for a long time, but also trying to embrace new thoughts and fresh eyes. I mean, I'm hoping that there's some way that we can kind of marry the two.
Couldn't that work just by virtue of like when someone's when someone's term is up, we just vote on whether or not to reappoint them, and probably 95% of the time they get reappointed. But if we all agree for some reason, we have a discussion and somebody becomes like, the word dead weight or whatever comes to mind, then like maybe we take another route.
How about,
I even like better what I think Seth is proposing, which is you actually advertise it, to the community, and basically, the person who was just in that position, or maybe is still currently in the position, is also sort of reapplying along with others, so that because the way we have it now is that people often don't even know that these positions are there for them to apply for. I mean, essentially they're not.
I worry if we go that route, like some people might be like, well, I don't want to be in some competitive process where every 4 years or 3 years or whatever, I'm going to have to go out and basically do a job interview and maybe get rejected.
How about this? And tell me, this is probably, Jay, you'll probably say, no, this is not how it's done. But what if it required like our budget votes, where it was a supermajority to replace a committee member that wanted to reapply for their position? What if we had to have a supermajority vote to actively replace somebody?
I can look into some procedures, and I guess I want to put a corral around us because we're trying to solve a problem as a committee here. And maybe what the best idea is focusing back on what Seth said, is that you had like an appointment issue, and the second issue you kind of were okay with, about let's say we're going to streamline it. Maybe that we should come up with not who in people, but who in positions we're talking about, and give you like a matrix of, these are the boards, these are the numbers, these are how long they serve, and you can kind of figure that out, because there's also some powers in the charter about how appointments get made. Okay, I mean, you do it a little collectively, and that's great, but we need to brush off the charter to make sure that you're making the appointments properly. Compared to other jurisdictions, not in how they do it, but in structure, if you are a mayor and council, the mayor is the one who appoints and the council is the one who approves. So you as a collective group don't ever get to pick anybody. You just say yes or no to the pick. And that is something to be considered, because that carries, you're kind of independent of that, is what I'm saying. Like, you don't have that political type of force. So I think that one of the things I'm hearing is that Seth and I should probably come up with a two-stage plan. One is, how do we go about options A, B, or C for how you would want to appoint, and maybe you would do it differently. And then the second option being what you kind of readily agreed on, is streamlining them so that the appointments can occur and people remember them, and give you the pros and cons on them. I got to tell you, I like how you do it, and the fact that they're all happening at the same time, because you go to any other town, because you're the only one that does this, any other town, and you say, hey, when is the appointments for the ethics board up? Oh, I don't know. And it's like this search through the minutes to find out when it happened. When it's the same time every year, now it might not be the same people every year, but the same time every year, it's appointment time. That's the way it works. So
good feedback, Jay. That's fine.
That's the biggest reason for having it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's the biggest reason having the same deadline, because you really do start scrambling through minutes and who got appointed and what and when.
Mm-hmm. I like this direction. I'm good with the streamlining, and then if you can give us just a little bit more information on both the historical and other town bases for how those nomination processes work. I'm open to all that. It ain't broke, you guys, but it is the streamlining. It does need to take place, and then having a good, fruitful discussion on the other is no harm in that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, like, to revisit this stuff we've been doing for years and years and years. Jay, am I understanding you correct to say that you're going to come up with like several different options? Like if we wanted to do something different, you're going to present us with some options for what we could do?
Yeah, because I don't think they're really that many. We can narrow it down into 1 or 2 or 3 different categories, and then you can hybrid them if you want.
Good.
Seth and I can talk about it, but Seth's already figured them out. It's just a matter of, are you interested in opening this box or not?
I'd be curious to hear him. And then what about the term limit part of Carrie's discussion? How does everyone feel about that?
I'm not in favor of it necessarily.
Me neither. I mean, we've run into times, like Jim said, we've run into times when there's a dearth of applicants, or whatever. And, I just feel that if someone's doing a good job, I think they're going to do a good job. And like we've done before, if someone becomes problematic, well, then we have to step up and.
I'm surprised you wouldn't be in favor of term limits, Jerry.
Yuck, yuck, Martin.
I'm trying not to laugh. So we have a direction, right, guys?
Yes, we got a direction. We're good. We can take this. That's fine.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barry, I like that you're thinking about this stuff and not, we're not just, I think it makes sense to go through every process we have, slowly, but and just make sure we're doing it right. Make sure there's not a better way we could be doing it, because I think we'll find that some things can be done much better, and probably most things are being done pretty well, but we probably will find the occasional thing that we can do better, and that's pretty important. I like that.
Well, it's nice that we have Seth too, who, is giving us fresh eyes on all of this. So I really appreciate that.
Agreed.
Right. Thank
so
you.
Next is Seth's report.
Certainly. So as you've probably driven around town, you've seen the paving project coming along well. They paved down Hunter's Run last week. They just did the section of Cattail and Dr. Walling today. So that's in paved in good shape. There's just some other improvements they're doing around town, some general patching and other repairs on some different things. You'll probably notice on General Custer, they did some sidewalk work. That's where we focused a fair amount of our sidewalk work with this paving contract. So that's going to be a nice little improvement over there on those sidewalks. Well, we're on infrastructure. You might have remembered or might have heard about maybe a year or 2 years ago. I think it was a year or 2 years ago that over in Tama, there was a water valve that blew due to a faulty bolt. And we discovered that over in that neighborhood, a number of the water valve bolts are defective. And so it blew a pretty sizable hole in there. And then we had to patch a sizable hole because of how much water had spread out underneath the sub basin, needed to be changed. So with this year, we've decided to go fix all the other remaining valves and bolts in that vicinity that are damaged, basically in McKernan and on Cecil Manor Drive. So I have this one here. You can see how this one's rounded off. It's literally rusted through. Instead of being a bolt, this became essentially a pin with no other head on it. The fact that this didn't blow is pretty surprising. And of course, obviously when water valves blow, it makes a lot of pressure, as I've described in the damage, but also residents lose their water for a little while. I'm able to do this with minimal interruptions, but we're taking care of this. Unfortunately, this has failed before its lifetime, but it didn't fail within the manufacturer's specifications, so that's an issue. It's supposed to be stainless steel and not rusted through, but we've just finished those up today. Those bolts. So over the past week and a half, those been changed out.
So are we just replacing the bolts, or are we replacing the whole valve?
All we have to do is replace the bolts.
Okay.
The bolts just come right through on some of these.
How many of those do we have to, not how many bolts, but how many valves do we have to do that on?
Well, about 20, I think it was 20 or 22 of these.
No,
So,
no. How many valves though?
well, there's only one of these bolts per valve. So
really?
basically it's the same number. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the main. Yep. Well, 11 in probably the next 2 weeks, we should start ramping up towards getting that online. We're set and scheduled to get everybody in there and start running through some mechanisms. Can't say it's gonna be open on the first day we do it, but we're gonna start the process, and within a few days we should have it up and running. The county road transfer, I've reached out to the county. It is now sitting in the county executive's office. The good thing is their attorney signed off on it. And as you typically know, it's the attorneys who nitpick these things to death. So if he signed it, that's a good sign. Sorry, Jay. Collier Circle, I have communicated with the county. They went and did a survey of how much sediment has accumulated in the pond. My contact I communicated with either on, I think it was Thursday, and he said he hadn't heard anything, and he's with the county. So he said he would get back with me when he did hear something over there. So that's the Collier Circle Pond, waiting on an understanding what they will or will not do. Carrie mentioned the Parks and Rec is meeting this month in a couple days. The Planning Commission is going to meet next week as well. Let's see, we've talked about the election process. That'll be on your agenda for next month, and how we intend to handle the election process. So that pretty much covers, and the Ethics Commission will be meeting on the 24th to go over the ethics form, and then of course go through the election form as well. So that can be ready for the election.
Hey, Seth, I have a couple questions for you. Thank you for that report. These are things I've kind of asked about in the past, and you've given good answers, and I'm just curious for an update. The first is the crosswalks. That's something you're still on the agenda for August?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Awesome. The other is, when I was coming home the other day, I noticed those something had changed with the electric car refueling stations that are out by Fisher. Are those actually being moved now? They look like they were like new machines were put in there or something.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the full story. So there are 2 new machines. So the ones closest to Fisher Avenue are the ones being changed out, as I understand it. Those 2 that exist closest to Fisher Avenue are going over to Tad's and being hooked up there, because the type of electric that you need to run that type of quick charge is on that side of the street.
Right, but aren't the ones that are on Fisher Avenue also new now? Like, didn't they just replace them a couple weeks ago or something?
Well, they're within the last year that I know of. So you got the ones closest into what was Watershed Cafe. That's been there a while.
Right.
Those have been there. And there's not much happening with those, just for sake of simplicity.
And
Then
they're
the ones
fully
closest.
functional. Fully functional people use them all the time.
fully functional.
So the ones by Fisher Avenue, like it could be my memory like escaping me or something, but I thought they used to be bigger. And then the other day I drove by and it looked like there was new machines that were smaller and more streamlined that look a little bit more like the ones Jim was talking about.
You are probably correct, because the ones that were there required a much more higher electrical capacity than is in that vicinity. That higher capacity is across the street. The simple question is, why can't we just bring it across the street? It's overhead lines. It's a whole different phase of electric. It's like your outlet versus your stove, right? Your stove has a much higher level output. And it costs a lot to get across the street. So what's happened is those big ones that didn't have enough capacity, they're going across the street to Tad's. He offered that site. They can get electric to it fairly quickly. The other ones that are going in are a little bit smaller and are also electric charging stations. So it's basically 3 types. There's one slower, one a little quicker, and then the faster charger.
So we'll have 6 different chargers then at some point.
I think that's the exciting thing. We have 6.
I think what you're getting though is you're getting 2 additional chargers that are exactly like the chargers that are next to Watershed. And because the two chargers that they put there originally, the larger ones that you referenced to, Martin, is they require 3-phase power.
I got that.
And that, okay, so, and those are the ones that are moving over to TAD. So we're gonna have 4 of the same type of charger with the same type charging capacity. That's the Wayland Commons and the 2 rapid ones across the street.
And that was my question, because I thought originally we were going to have the 2 by Watershed, and then the 2 that were on Fisher would
Right.
move, and there'd be 4 total. But now we're, so okay, that makes sense. Then now we're going to have 6. Good, that's great.
Right, and
we'll
2 of them are
eventually
still,
put a sign- I'm sorry, go ahead. Bert.
2 of them are still in boxes, right? The 2 that are still in the boxes next to where the new ones have been installed but are not functional yet. The 2 that are in boxes are the ones that I'm guessing are being moved over to,
Yeah.
or to TADS, or are those boxes even empty?
There's
I don't
already
know.
one over
The
there
boxes are empty.
at TADS. There's already one of those at TADS already on the side of the building.
Oh,
So
really?
then, yeah, so then I'm not, maybe those boxes are empty then. Maybe
Yeah.
we can get them out of there.
As of Friday, I saw them, so I'll take a look.
If you don't mind, Seth, also too, the guys that did the work over there, they not, you know, I was watching it for motorcycles, obviously, but there's a lot of screws on the ground from where they did all that
Yeah.
assembly work. So if you can make sure the guys clean it up.
Yep, I can deal with that.
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome.
Go
I
ahead,
don't have
Jerry.
anything for
Okay,
that.
I have 2 additional questions. One, back when we were having the problem with the stormwater management pond next to the middle school, that turned out to be a valve problem. And as I recall, Preston told me that we had a similar problem over at the Tama Pond. Did that valve at the Tama Pond ever get changed out by the county?
I will look into that. I will look into that.
Okay, and then the other question is this, is in the last, excluding today, we had approximately 3.5 to 4 inches. Today, I think maybe it's now 4 to 4.5 inches with the rain that we've just gotten. We had all those meters that we were moving around various places to determine, you know, if we had some I&I flow in various areas. I assume that program is still going on, and are we going to hear anything with respect to the recent rainfalls and what those meters have registered?
What I'll do is, first of all, yes, that program is certainly continuing and will always continue. What we've discussed more recently is they've been in place, most of them been in the same place for nearly a year. It's given us a good amount of data. We're starting to shift a couple around. And one of them has found, you know, an issue that we are able to resolve a little bit with some inflow. And we were able to get that taken care of. It was a unnatural inflow. It wasn't necessarily through the cracking of the pipes and typical I&I. And so we're moving one of them to another location, trying to get some identification on this. So what I'll do is, I think it's a good time I'll bring in John, and he can kind of give an update, where we've been, what's happening, how that's coming along. I think that's a good opportunity for you all to touch base on this discussion. One thing I forgot to mention is the aerators in Collier Circle basically broke down this year. So both of them are up, and one has been up and running for a little while now. The second one just got installed this morning because it came in last week. And so both aerators are in Collier Circle functioning.
Very good. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
if I may indulge me one more.
Yeah.
The little gray cells finally worked with respect to Jim's question about what else was discussed in fair access. And one of the things that we talked about is Fair Access Committee broadening its scope. And one of the things was raised was having a safe classroom so students could go to and, you know, study or attend virtual classes because they may not have broadband service at their particular location. And Catherine Bellevue has emailed various churches in Poolsville on whether or not they would want to participate in a safe space or safe classroom program. And I know that one of the churches, I know the elder at one church, and they are going to be discussing this because it's not something you can take lightly. They may want to do it, but I don't know what all the issues are with respect to disinfectant liability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other thing is we talked about that some of these kids may have free time, and it might be good to have people from local area businesses provide information sessions about business in the ag reserve and doing business in the ag reserve. You know the unique stuff that you experience. Whether it's like I talked with Eric Spates, and he said he'd be willing to do something like that, and maybe engage some of the other business owners to talk about their business to fill in some of the time that these kids may have that are free. And we could always videotape them and put them on our website too. And that's it. Thank you.
Seth, thanks, Jerry. I have a question for you. As we know, this past, either in the last week or last week and a half, I don't remember which, we received a letter from an attorney group regarding one of the decisions we made as a board in the last meeting. Is that something that we need to talk about here, or is that something that we need to potentially go to closed session for, schedule a closed session for, to have to receive attorney advice on?
Well, it does sound like, and somebody else has reached out to me, another commissioner, about getting some legal advice from that letter we received and what it means. So if you're interested in getting Jay's legal opinion, I would say that, we vote or schedule a time on next agenda to adjourn to closed session about the fact that, a decision you all made, somebody has found another attorney to represent them in addition to their original attorney. So, there may be a level of seriousness to the issue, which could be pending litigation.
I mean, I'd be in favor of advice is always good. I'm not sure how the rest of the commissioners feel, but I think it wouldn't hurt to at least have Jay provide advice on our legal standing as we move forward. But I yield to the other commissioners for their decision on that.
I absolutely agree, Jim. I think we need to get, you saw my email, I think we need to get legal advice and discuss, possible options.
I agree with Jim and Martin.
I thought the advice was that we weren't supposed to talk.
Well, we have to have a public discussion before we can go into private discussion, I guess. So Jay, so Seth, is that have we covered our bases in terms of transparency here?
Yeah, Jay, I mean, you're legal, I'll let you take the transparency element, but.
I mean, I think you're fine. I mean, you're talking about you wanting some legal advice, and so we know the subject matter. And I would say that it's the easiest for us to go into it after your next meeting because it's already a scheduled time. And Seth can work the technology, whether we just stay on the line or we get off and call back in. But that way we can adjourn to a closed session and the public knows we're doing it, and that's no big deal.
Right.
And I have enough to put on the agenda.
Okay, good.
All right, well, if that's everything for the evening, I guess, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.